Welcome, one and all, to the Creepypasta Dome. Today we're going to be reading some creepypastas from the Creepypasta Wiki. And you could argue that most of them are crappy, but we're going to be going for the real stinkers. Seinfeld lost episode? Oh, let's go. What is this? Dude, okay, hold on. I'm saving that. This is the thumbnail. This is the thumbnail. There's a story about a lost episode of Seinfeld floating around the internet. The episode was supposed to air around season 6, but it was mysteriously cut. The official story about the episode is that it featured Elaine purchasing a firearm after being mugged, but many elements about this episode were never revealed until recently. NBC executives refused to officially report on the episode until the Seinfeld season 6 DVD commentary. I have the tape, but as someone who works within NBC, I can't reveal my sources. Your sources that you work within NBC, you just reveal it. You stupid fuck. I work at the GE building in Rockefeller Plaza, and I have access to their digital archives. That's as much as I can divulge. We also have the entire original Seinfeld series in multiple formats, including reels and VHS tapes. I noticed an episode with the production code 607 was missing from the tape set, and that it was relocated in a set of old newsreels. The replacement episode, The Mom and Pop Store, was filmed a season later to replace the missing episode. It is oddly titled The Mason. The episode starts out as normal, with Jerry's apartment, but the camera was much more steady. Jerry walks out as though he's been drugged, and remarks that all of his family and friends have been dying lately. His buzzer rings, and it's George. George runs up, half crying, and tells Jerry he's seen something horrible. He's mumbling and stuttering for about 5 minutes until he can form a sentence. There are still pauses for humor, but there is no audience or laugh track. George informs Jerry that planes have crashed into the Twin Towers due to a terrorist attack on New York. Jerry turns on the news, and you can see modern footage of the 9/11 attacks, all pre-filmed several years beforehand. George says that isn't the worst part. Elaine and Kramer were in the towers at the time of the bombing. But then what proceeds is a graphic and explicit phone call of screaming and crying Kramer, saying something terrible has happened and that Elaine is dead. Kramer says there's no air in the building and he's burning to death and he's going to jump. The camera cuts to live footage of a man falling from the Twin Towers. George looks genuinely upset and said, "I'm sorry, Larry, but I can't go through with this." He tries to walk off the set. People stop him and push him toward the stage. He walks out Jerry's prop window and you can hear him calling his agent. There's a lot of mumbling. You can see candles being lit behind the stage. Jerry goes over to the bookcase and pulls it aside, revealing a ceremonial black table with candles, a dinner plate, a strange box. There's a Masonic symbol against the black cloth just outside where the fake strange window would be. Jerry says some weird things in a foreign dialect, and one of the cameras shows a poster of Barack Obama. This episode originally aired in 1995. The scene ends with Jerry waking up in bed, as though it's a nightmare. Kramer comes in and asks if Jerry has seen a lizard. Jerry laughs and said, "We are all the lizards." And the camera zooms slightly. His eyes become silvered like almonds. The tape is only 7 minutes long, and what precedes it is just 20 minutes of dead air. If you continue watching to the end, there are 3 more news reports tacked on. The first about an outbreak of swine flu, the second about a train bombing, and the third... I want to know what the third is! Alright, guys, this gets 10 red-eyed Jerry Seinfelds out of 10. Third about a virus from China. Third was about Donald Trump as president. And Game of Thrones. But what's the third? Dead Bart. Bro, this looks like the cover of a freestyle rap beat. Finding details about the missing episode is difficult. No one who was working on the show at the time likes to talk about it. From what has been placed together, the lost episode was written entirely by Matt Groening during production of the first season. Matt started to act strangely. He was very quiet. He seemed very nervous and morbid. Mentioning this to anyone who was present results in them getting very angry and forbidding you to ever mention it to Matt. The episode's production number was 7G44. The title was Dead Bart. In addition to getting angry, asking anyone on the show about this will cause them to do anything they can to stop you from directly communicating with Matt Groening. At a fan event, I managed to follow him after he spoke to the crowd, and eventually I had a chance to talk to him alone as he was leaving the building. He didn't seem upset that I'd follow him. He probably expected a typical encounter with an obsessive fan. When I mentioned the episode, though, all the color drained from his face, and he started trembling. When I asked him if he could tell me any details, he sounded like he was on the verge of tears. He grabbed a piece of paper, wrote something on it, handed it to me, and begged me never to mention the episode again. The piece of paper had a website address on it. I would rather not say what it was for reasons you'll see in a second. I entered the address into my browser and came to a site that was completely black, except for a line of yellow text, a download link. I clicked it, and the file started downloading. Once the file had downloaded, my computer went crazy. It was the worst virus I had ever seen. System restore didn't work. The entire computer had to be rebooted. Before doing this, though, I copied the file onto a CD. I tried to open it on my now empty computer, and as I suspected, there was an episode of The Simpsons on it. The episode started off like any other episode, but had very poor quality animation. If you've seen the original animation for Some Enchanted Evening, it was similar, but less stable. The first act was fairly normal, but the way the characters acted was a little off. Homer seemed angrier, Marge seemed depressed, Lisa seemed anxious, Bart seemed to have genuine anger and hatred for his parents. The episode was about the Simpsons going on a plane trip. Near the end of the first act, the plane was taking off. Bart was fooling around. As you'd expect, However, as the plane was about 50 feet off the ground, Bart broke a window and the plane was sucked out. At the beginning of the series, Matt had an idea that the animated style of The Simpsons world represented life, and that death turned things more realistic. This was used in this episode. The picture of Bart's corpse was barely recognizable. They took full advantage of it not having to move, and made almost a photorealistic drawing of his dead body. Act 1 ended with a shot of Bart's corpse. Act 2 started. Homer, Marge, and Lisa were sitting at their table, crying. The crying went on and on. It got more pained, more realistic, better acting than you would think possible. The animation started to decay more as they cried. You could hear murmuring in the background. The crying went on for all of Act 2. Act 3 opened with a title card saying 1 year had passed. Homer, Marge, and Lisa were skeletally thin, all sitting at the table. There was no sign of Maggie or the pets. They decided to visit Bart's grave. Springfield, oh my god, I'm not scrolling down to that yet. You have to wait for that. Springfield was completely deserted, and when they walked through into the cemetery, the houses became more and more decrepit, looking abandoned. They got to the grave. Bart's body was lying in front of the tombstone, looking just like it did at the end of Act 1. Marge! The family started crying again. Eventually they stopped and stared at Bart's body. The camera zoomed in on Homer's face. According to summaries, Homer tells a joke at this part, but it isn't audible in the version I saw. You can't tell what Homer is saying. The view zoomed out as the episode came to a close. The tombstones in the background had the name of every Simpsons guest star on them. Some that no one had heard of in 1989. Some who haven't been on the show yet. All of them had dates on them. Guests who had died since, like Michael Jackson and George Harrison, the dates were when they would die. You can try to use the tombstones to predict the death of living Simpsons guest stars, but there's something odd about most of the ones who haven't died yet. All of the deaths are listed as the same date. Dun dun dun! Alright, that gets 4 dead Bart Simpsons out of 10. Back when this was first out, I was in a band, and we used to stay up late reading these pastas: Suicide Squidward, Suicide Mouse, Slender Man, The Beatles' Lost Tape, and The Russian Sleep Experiment. It was great times. That's exactly what me and my band do nowadays. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. Well, this has been horrible. I hope to God that I never have to read any of these again, but I am gonna have to edit this for YouTube, so yeah, that'll be fun. Well, that's all. Hey kids, thanks so much for watching. If you want to see more, just let me know in the comments, and if you don't, also let me know in the comments. Please bully me. I don't care. But if you want to see more, click one of these buttons, and if not, well, then you can go watch something else. That's it. Bye.